Hey everybody, what's up? It's your girl Bondy Blue, and I am back for another This Is Us review, y'all. All right, so this episode was really good, and it was so interesting to watch what would have happened from Randall's standpoint in his imaginary, wonderful, magical world where he has control over every little thing that happens in his life. And before we get into the specifics of it all, I just want to bring attention to the fact that our parents are supposed to die. Like, everybody is supposed to eventually die. And I know it can be very unfortunate when they do. Trust me, I understand. Like, I've lost people throughout my entire life. Like, from a child, I've consistently lost people that I loved very much and cared about. So I understand. But I also feel like it is a part of life. And it is such as life for our parents to precede us in death. That is the way it's supposed to be. This idea that you can stop your parents from dying is ridiculous. And Randall has this idea that he can keep his parents from dying. And what really needs to happen is that you need to adjust and understand that that is life. And that is the way things are supposed to be, because the last thing anybody ever wants is to lose a child. That, I think, is way more devastating and unnatural than people losing their parents. So, hi, Livy. Hi. She's clean, so yay. Okay? So I just feel like Randall's ridiculous. Like, trying to create this existence in his mind where he could have changed things with his dad. Like, I just don't understand. But either way, y'all, I'm sorry. I've talked. Let's get into the specifics. So Randall is in therapy going through what he thinks would have happened if Jack didn't die. First of all, Jack didn't go back in the house. He's like, Dad, if you go back in the house, then I'm going to run in there and drag you out. And that's supposed to make Jack not run back in the house. But realistically, Jack is a grown man. And if he had decided to go back inside because he heard that dog barking and he couldn't live with leaving that dog to burn to death in that house, I mean, in all honesty, there was probably nothing that Randall or anybody else could have done, because that is the person that Jack is. But you know what? Let's go down this road for a second. Jack didn't go back into the house. He jumps down and somehow the dog also safely gets out of the house. Child, I don't know how. Right after they get back from the hospital and all is well and Jack didn't die, Rebecca feels guilty and decides to tell Jack about meeting Randall's dad all those years ago, right after she had him. She saw him out in front of the hospital. She followed him to his apartment. She, I think, knocked on the door. I'm not sure, but I think she knew he was on drugs for sure, because she said to Randall he was not healthy. He was not in a good way. He was an addict, and I was scared that he might have taken you away. But either way, they have to explain this to Randall, the both of them. And Randall is so upset. Okay, because he feels like, how could you have kept this from me? When in all actuality, like, okay, so say you would have known about him. He's been on drugs this entire time, and it was hard enough for Rebecca to see Randall as her son when physically and biologically he was not hers. It was difficult for her at first to feel like Randall was her son. And I guess she didn't feel she needed any interference whatsoever. He needed to be only hers and Jack's, and she could work from there, and we saw how their relationship flourished. But ultimately, I feel like that is something that he needed to forgive her for, because she's been a great mother thus far to a child that she did not biologically have, at a time where it was extremely difficult for her physically to bond with him as a baby. You know what I'm saying? So I just feel like we can give Rebecca a pass for not telling him initially. I understand he feels like he lost time with William and that was Rebecca's fault. But really, that was William's fault, because he was on drugs and left his baby at the steps of the fire station. Who are we really upset at the end of the day? But in Randall's perfect world, he and Jack go to meet William at his apartment. And even though he is still on drugs, he is happy and welcoming and somehow very aware of himself and the fact that this is a very uncomfortable situation. So Jack Randall and William sit down and they talk. And William brings out the book of poetry that he wrote for him. He tells Randall that he was never not wanted. Like, it's this great experience for Randall. And he wants to spend more time with William. So he decides not to go to Howard like he originally wanted to. He still meets Beth and falls in love with her and has all his same kids. William was still on drugs, and at first Jack didn't want Randall to spend time with him because it's like he's a drug addict. And Randall says to him, "Dad, you're an addict too," which was very true. We all know that Jack was an alcoholic and he had to get his life, all right? Jack takes William to group and to an AA meeting, and after a while, I guess William gets his life together. He's incorporated in the family. They're all there when Beth and Randall have their first child. It's this beautiful, magical experience. One of the most interesting things was the way Randall reacted to Rebecca after the truth was out there about her meeting or seeing William years ago. He was upset with her. He actually held it against her, but ultimately he was able to get past it because Beth interfered. They were actually at dinner and he was being a dick to his mom, and Beth pulled him to the side and told him so and explained to him that life was too short because she was walking around with the hot sauce in her bag to remind her of her dead father, and he has two great fathers and a great mother, and he should not be taking any of those relationships for granted. So he eventually forgave Rebecca and he became the Randall that we all know. I think he did something different as far as his job, but ultimately he was still the same old Randall. Girl, get off. She wants to be on the mic. I don't know what's happening. Randall makes William go to the doctor earlier to save him from getting stomach cancer. And just as Jack and Randall are about to band together to save Rebecca from Alzheimer's, like as if there's a way to do that, but whatever, okay? The therapist interrupts and says, "Can we keep it real here? Can we be honest? Because if not, you can go and play some board games instead of wasting my time, okay? Because you said you wanted to be challenged, and I'm challenging you and asking you, tell me about what scares you the most if your father has survived that night. Like, what is the actual real fear of what would have happened with Randall if Jack had made it?" So we go back and we redo it. Jack and Randall are both very upset with Rebecca about the fact that she kept that from them. Randall goes to meet William, and William closes the door in his face and says that he never had a son, which devastates Randall. So he decides to go to Howard early, never meets Beth, becomes a professor, becomes a Q dog, gets 2 earrings, and definitely, is starting to feel his African Americanness. Like, I'm just gonna say it. The 2 earrings, the dark colors, the dark browns, the dark blacks. It was just very sexy. Randall was very, you can just tell, one of those guys that's like, all hurt and emotionally unavailable. So you always trying to fix them, especially when they come in nice, successful packaging like Randall does, okay? But he's distanced himself from his family, so Kevin was able to take up that spot and become closer to the family. He works with Jack now in a business that Jack has, and that business does well for them, and their lives financially seem to be better. But Randall is away. He's not a part of the family anymore, and when he does show up, there is definitely a feeling of animosity that he can't forgive Rebecca for not being honest with him. He gets a package from William one day, and it has his hat and the book of poetry and probably just the things that he wished he had said at the time if he were clean, but he was not. So, of course, Randall doesn't take that into consideration because he probably wasn't really aware of it at the time. So, after he looks through the box, he throws it in the garbage can, something that Randall would never do. So, it showed you how different his life would have been if Jack wouldn't have died and eventually still became an alcoholic from drinking all the time because he was so upset with his wife about keeping such a huge secret from him all these years. So yeah, not exactly the best outcome, but more realistic to what would have happened. Ultimately, Jack calls Randall one day and tells him that Rebecca is sick, and he absolves her and forgives her in the end anyway. The therapist asks, why is Randall so sure he would have been able to save Jack? And he says, well, then at least he would know that he tried. He wouldn't have spent the past 20 years of his life, 30 years of his life, however long it's been, regretting the feeling that he didn't give it his best effort to try and fix it, because that's what he does. He fixes things. The therapist says, you said that your dad had a widowmaker heart attack. So even if you were there at the hospital, there isn't necessarily anything that you could have done to save him, Randall. Like, just accept that. But for Randall, the situation with William makes him feel differently, because he feels like he tried, and then when it became too difficult to continue to try, he was okay with letting it go. But then he says that he knows what the therapist is thinking, that, oh, he must have had Jack for his entire life, which is different from his relationship with William, who he had just really, gotten to know at that point. And the therapist is like, I didn't say anything. And then he tells the therapist that he knows that he's just a pawn in the universe's big chess game. He doesn't need an overpriced therapist in cheap shoes to tell him that. I said, oh, Randall, I'm so disappointed in you. What is happening? Why are you so upset? Like, calm down. Like, you're going to lose your parents in life. I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. But my God, it will happen. It is inevitability. I just don't understand why people act as if there's something that you can actually do to stop it from happening, and you can't. The therapist says that this is really about Rebecca at the end of the day. In both scenarios, Rebecca immediately tells the truth about what happened with William, which there is no telling that she would have actually had that response to what happened. The therapist says that he actually sought out her as a therapist, a white female therapist, because she is probably around the same age that his mom was when his dad died, and he is trying to work out his issues about his mom with someone who looks like his mom. He's never confronted Rebecca about what she did to him, and maybe he actually needs to do that instead of internalizing everything and letting it show itself in his need to control everything, even when it is completely out of his control. Randall goes home to Beth, who is extremely proud of him for even going to therapy and working on his issues, because God knows she can't have him at the house all bent up and frustrated and having nervous breakdowns in the bathroom the way he has been. So that night, I guess all of the things he discussed in therapy made him feel like even more so he was justified in his feelings that Rebecca needed to do this trial, this clinical trial in St. Louis that she has already said she doesn't want to do. But he feels like she needs to do it so that he does not have the same feeling he has with Jack, where he feels like if he would have done something different, then she would have had more time and she would have lived longer. And I just feel like it's so ridiculous, because ultimately the end will be the same, and you will have taken time that you could have had with her so that she can go through something that will only, give her a little bit more time, and that time you've kind of taken away from her because she isn't with her family where she wants to be. She's at a clinical trial in another state somewhere, alone, going through people poking and prodding her body all the time. Also, you could not have to fear that, oh, there's something you could have done. Like, newsflash, Randall, there is no cure for Alzheimer's, and it doesn't matter what happens in a clinical trial. It's only more time. That's all it is. She's still going to die eventually. And then what? Like, I'm so upset with him for calling her and basically using her guilt about the Williams situation to make her go and do the clinical trial. I've never asked you for anything, Mama. I've always been a good son. And I'm telling you that I need you to do this, and I need you to say that you're going to do it. Like, all of that was too much to me, because this is her life and it should be what she wants and how she wants to do it, and not based off of whatever the fuck Randall is going through right now. It's him still trying to control things that are not really in his control. And I was so disappointed in the outcome of the episode, but ultimately the episode was delicious emotionally and mentally for me. So yes, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel if you have not already. Y'all, make sure that your notifications are on. Make sure that you're following me on Twitter and on Instagram and on Facebook, because I guess when YouTube doesn't have as many people on their systems, things kind of slow down. And yesterday I had put up my Love and Hip Hop videos and they were like stagnant the entire day until that night. And then I guess people started to get notifications and started to see my post. So it is very important that you guys follow me on other platforms so that you can see when I post things in case YouTube starts tripping. Okay, so yes, follow me on Twitter at BondyBlue. Follow me on Instagram at BondyBlue. I'm also at BondyBlue on Facebook. So yeah, keep up with me so you'll know when I upload the video, so you know you won't be sitting there bored and the video been up for like 15 hours and YouTube ain't never told you. That's so unfortunate. So I love y'all. Okay, we still under quarantine. Stay inside. See y'all in the next one.